Let's just save our file. And we'll decorate it now with a little bit of animation before we get into the actor and the coin. I've got a fan and a fan blade, so let me just drag this fan up into the inspector to create another new actor. And we'll drag that into the scene here. And if I double click on it, I'm going to go to behaviors down below, and I'll add a behavior called rotate. So we can bring that in there. I'll just say clockwise, speed 90 should be fine. Let's just go back and hit preview and see how that looks. And I'm fine with that as is. Now if I wanted to resize it, I could. Let's just go back to our images here and bring in a fan cover as one of our actors, and we'll just drag that across. So the fan cover looks a little small right now, so let me just bring that back, and maybe we'll just make this a little bit smaller. So under size, yeah, let's just try, I don't know, 100 by 100, which does divide by 4, so it should remain sharp. And we'll try that fan cover on top of there now and see if it just sort of fits better. I do prefer that, so I'm going to leave it like that. So there's one. And again, if I hit preview, I can see that. It's just a decorative animation, if you will, at this point. And if I can see it's not perfectly centered, but I could just use my arrow keys and nudge the graphics until they are perfectly positioned. So let's just put 3 of those guys in then. Put another one over here, and I'm just going to go by eye for today. And I can duplicate this with my option key down. And I'll do the same thing with the fan cover. And let's just have a quick look at that. And there we go. Okay, let's give that a save. Alright, the next thing I'm going to drop in here is a spinning coin, which will be something that when our little character comes into contact with it will disappear, giving the impression that he's picked it up. So again, I'll just grab coin 1 here and drag it into the inspector to make an actor, and we'll bring that onto the scene. And I'll just drag that over here. And I'll double click on it and we'll attribute some animation to it. So there's a behavior called animate. We'll bring that in there. And what I need to do is basically drag the images and sequence them for this animation. So I'm going to go coin 1 through to coin 10. There's 10 separate frames. And I'll just say this is sequenced images. And it looks like they're in order. So let's just go back here. And we'll actually hit preview and give it a try. And there you have your spinning coin and your rotating fans. We'll go back here and we'll save the file. Alright, so now we'll introduce our character to the scene. I'll start by creating an actor. So I'll go to this first frame of him looking forward. And it's called player standing. So we've created a new actor called player standing. And we'll drag that into our scene for now. And we'll bring it up, I guess, about here. And I'll just go back here and we'll start to attribute some fake gravity, if you will. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to give it an accelerate facing downward. And we'll just make it so that when it encounters some elements that are tagged floor, it will stop. In other words, it will collide with them and it will stop. So let's go down to behavior and we'll drag in accelerate. And again, the distance is the angle, 270 is downwards. And there's a little slider wheel too, but 270 is exactly headed down. And acceleration, I'll speed that up to 250 and we'll say relative to the scene. So if I was to preview it now, it would just drop off the scene. So what we want to do is we want to make it so that if it collides with the wall or the floor or the plank, it will actually stop. Now instead of putting in, let's say, 3 or 4 or 5 collide commands, we can attribute those to something called a tag. So let's go back to the home and I'll show you how you can set up a tag and attribute it to the various elements. So the first thing we do is we go to the Actors tab when we're in the Home section. Click the plus sign. It says New Tag 1. I'll just call this Floors. And if I go to the All, I can drag in, I can shift click and drag in all the elements across that name, and they will adopt the tag called Floors. So let's just drag those over there. Okay, so if I click on Floors, now I can see everything in there that has the tag called Floors. And I can add to this group and I can delete from this group. Let's go back now. And now we'll add a collide. And we'll say collide with actor with tag versus type. Actor with tag, Floors. And if we go back to our scene, this should drop and it should stop when it encounters the floor or the plank or anything that has the tag called Floors. So let's hit preview. There we go. Now there's way too much bounce, so let's fix that, and then we'll start to add some commands to move left and right. So I'll just go back here, double click here, and I'll go into my physics. And bounciness, I'm just going to say 0.35. From experience, I know that'll give it just a little bit of a bounce. Okay, so the bounciness has been changed to 0.35. Let's give that a quick try. Okay, there we go. And now let's attribute some left and right movement according to the left and right arrow keys on the keyboard. So I'm going to create a rule for that. Create rule. And there'll be actually two conditions. One will be the mouse key. So we'll choose actor receives event on key press. Which key? The right key. So when the right key is down, we want it to move to the right. But I want two conditions. I don't want it to be moving while it's in the air. So I also want it to be firmly on the ground. So let's add a second condition. So it must also be colliding or overlapping with the actor type. Let's go with actor with tag, Floors. Now we're going to put a move command in there if it meets those two conditions. So we'll drag the move command down here. Direction is 0, meaning to the right. I'll slow the speed down to about 200 relative to the scene. And let's give that a try. Okay, so if I hit my right arrow key, once it's firmly landed, it does move. So let's do the same thing for the left arrow. I'll actually name this. I'll say move right. Okay, I can duplicate this whole rule with my option key down. And I'll just rename this one move left. And of course we'll change the arrow key to the left key. And we'll change the direction to be 180, which is the opposite direction, and meaning move to the left. Let's give that a try. So now once it lands onto the plank, I should be able to go left and right. And there we go, right arrow, left arrow. Now it's a little bit boring. We probably want to add some animation to these different movements as well. Let's just go back here and save our file first. And now we can add some animation. So when it moves to the right, let's add an animate behavior down here. And we'll go to our images and we'll just look for our walking sequence to the right. And it looks like there's 3 frames here, so I'll shift click all of those and drag them in here. I'll say yes to sequenced images. Now the way this works is I was economizing on frames, so the second frame actually will be repeated, but instead of creating 2, we can use the same one over. So highlighting that second frame with my option key down, I will duplicate it and drag it over here. We'll keep it at 10 frames per second on a loop, and let's try that. So when I go to the right, it should now look like it walks. And when it stops, when I release the button, he faces forward again. So let's do that same thing for the left. I'll just collapse this here to make some room. And we'll add the other behavior, animate, under here. And we'll go to our images and we'll look for the walking left frames. And again, shift clicking and dragging. into that window. I'll say yes that they are sequences. And again, I'll repeat that second middle image, Option key down, duplicate, drag, and we should be good here. Let me just save the file, and then I'll test it. Okay, left, right. Okay, so far so good. And I'm just holding my left key down, and he's kind of trapped in here now. I didn't include a jump feature in this one. We will do jumping in the next tutorial. So let me just stop this now. I could rewind that back and try it again. Left, rather right, then left. A couple of things I want to add to this. I want to actually make it look like the legs are swinging. There's a little animation for when he's falling. And another feature I want to add is that it gulps up this coin when it comes into contact with it. So we'll deal with the falling first. I'm going to add another new rule here. Okay, so I'll just click on Create Rule, and I'll actually call this rule Falling. Basically the way this is going to work, it's going to almost be a negative effect. If it's not touching the ground, then it will animate. So let's create the condition. Actor receives event, overlaps or collides with actor with tag called floors, and we'll just say assumes a certain image, which is the player front. So I just drag the image in and it automatically puts in the attribute change image, the behavior change image. And under the otherwise is where the animation will take place. So we open up otherwise, and then under behaviors I'll choose animate. And I'll go to my images and I'll just choose the two here that look like the legs are wiggling. So again, under the condition that if the actor is touching the floor, it will assume this image. If it is not touching the floor, it will animate between these two images. So let's save that and give that a try. And there we go. And as soon as it lands, it settles down. But if I was to go to the right, again, anytime it's falling, it will assume that animation. Again, I can't jump it up, so I'm kind of trapped down here. So the last thing I want to add is the feature which allows my character to gobble up that coin, if you will. So let's go back to the coin. And I'll put an attribute here. I'll go to behaviors. And we'll create a rule. And we'll say if actor receives event, overlaps or collides with actor type player standing, we'll kill it. So we'll just go in here and go destroy. So destroy this actor if it collides with the character or the actor called player standing. So let's try that. So if I go over to the right and I intersect or collide with that coin, it should disappear, giving the impression that it's been gobbled up. Okay, so that is our exercise. We've got movement, we've got animation, we've got gravity, we've got a little bit of a game effect if I was to rewind this here. We do have the ability to eat up that coin, and then we've got some decorative animation in the background using rotate, and we've built some walls. And the big thing here with the graphics is that we learned how to create tiling and some variations on tiling to get the most bang for our buck and to basically save memory and performance speed and so on by maximizing the use of a few simple graphics. This is our exercise for today, and I'd like you to create this now.